Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating, highly detailed geopolitical scenario straight from our source material. We're breaking down a speculative but incredibly complex, decade-long tactical operation that leads right up to a hypothetical 2026 strike. The target? Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. We're going to treat this timeline like a giant, high-stakes puzzle, walking through exactly how the massive intelligence and military pieces all fit together.
All right, let's take a quick look at our blueprint for this explainer. We'll start with the initial shift in strategy, then step inside what they call the impossible target. From there, we'll see how the intelligence web was built, examine the geopolitical window, break down the minute-by-minute execution of the final strike, and wrap up with the shocking aftermath. Let's jump right in. Section 1. A shift in strategy, from nuclear facilities to leadership. So why exactly did Israeli strategy completely pivot away from just targeting nuclear sites? Well, by 2017, Israeli strategy had basically hit a brick wall. Every time they targeted a nuclear site or took out a scientist, Iran would just pack up, relocate, or bring in new experts. But then, January 31st, 2018 happens, the Shurabad document heist. This was straight out of a spy movie. Mossad agents actually used blowtorches to cut into iron safes in a Tehran warehouse, walking away with half a ton of top-secret nuclear documents. And this heist? It was a massive reality check. It exposed a bunch of secret underground locations that Israeli intelligence didn't even know existed. This led to a huge light bulb moment for the Israeli war cabinet. They realized that constantly striking facilities was, just a band-aid. It was a temporary fix. Because as long as Khamenei and his core team were intact, the nuclear program was just going to keep coming back. The ultimate permanent solution meant going after the leadership itself, but doing that meant risking absolute full-scale war. And to pull that off, they needed complete intelligence mastery and airtight diplomatic prep, especially with the United States. It was a literal game changer in how they approached the entire problem. Which brings us to Section 2, inside the impossible target, the Pa Street Fortress. Because to actually execute this bold new strategy, they first had to figure out exactly where Khamenei was. The focus zeroed in on a 30-acre compound on Pasteur Street in Tehran, along with the nearby Lavazan area. And guys, the defenses here are wild. Picture a 3-layer security radius pushing 500 meters out. It's heavily guarded by Iran's most elite units, like the Valier Armar guards who answered directly to Khamenei. The surface was literally blanketed with rotating cameras, frequency detectors, mobile phone jammers, and massive iron nets specifically built to catch incoming rockets and drones. But despite all that heavy armor on the surface, there's one single number that really puts this challenge into perspective: 5. It took exactly 5 minutes just to ride the elevator down into Khamenei's deep underground bunker. I mean, just imagine the sheer depth and scale of a subterranean fortress that takes 5 solid minutes just to get to the bottom of. And we're not just talking about one little panic room here. It was a massive 5-kilometer underground tunnel network running beneath the entire city. To totally avoid satellite detection, Khamenei could move around entirely underground. The source material notes over 8 secret gates linking this subterranean web to the surface, and they were purposefully hidden beneath multi-story parking garages, a kid's football school, and even a medical center where his actual command post was set up. The logistics of trying to map this are absolutely staggering. It basically made him a ghost. So, how in the world do you map an impossible target? Let's look at Section 3, Building the Intelligence Web. This outlines the literal decade of spy versus spy surveillance that followed. Infiltrating a fortress like this takes a breathtaking amount of coordination. According to the breakdown, Israel's Unit 8200 exploited a remote code execution bug in Chinese-made security cameras, Tandy and Hikvision models, that were placed all around Tehran. This gave them live video feeds right into the compound. They also used Pegasus spyware to hack the personal phones of the guards, the cooks, and the drivers. Meanwhile, up in the sky, Israeli and US military satellites were snapping pictures so precise they could map antennas and calculate object shadows from 600 kilometers up in space. And while that was happening, the Orion satellite was gobbling up internal radio chatter and beaming the raw data straight to a top-secret CIA facility in the Australian desert for processing. Of course, it turned into an incredibly tense, high-stakes, tactical chess match. Iran absolutely knew they were being watched, right? So they adapted. Their countermeasures got extreme. They started blindfolding visitors, they swapped out normal comms for untrackable fiber optic light pulses, and they perfectly timed all their movements to dodge satellite orbits.
But here's the crazy part. To cut through all that noise, Israeli intelligence brought in Palantir's Maven AI. By feeding it thousands of hours of video and intercepted data, the AI was able to map Khamenei's exact pattern of life with 98.7% accuracy. It figured out the guard shifts, the convoy setups, even the emergency bunker protocols.
But as you probably know, having the intelligence isn't the whole battle. Section 4, the geopolitical window, shows how global politics totally dictated when this strike could actually happen.
You see, shifting international politics created a really specific, narrow window for execution. The October 2023 Hamas attack massively accelerated Israel's operational plans. However, the Biden administration was heavily pushing back against direct retaliatory strikes on Iranian leadership. But then, the scenario factors in a projected Trump victory in November 2024, bringing with it the pro-Israel donor backing needed to greenlight the operation. This political shift paved the way for joint airstrikes in June 2025, known as Operation Rising Lion, and eventually led to a November 2025 sit-down where Israeli leadership finally locked in the exact strike date for the first quarter of 2026.
There's actually a wild little detail here. When Khamenei retreated to his deep bunker during those 2025 Operation Rising Lion strikes, Iran released a video of him, but the video was exported in this incredibly low-quality bitrate, and the audio was super blurred. Why? Specifically to stop the CIA and Mossad from analyzing the ambient background noise in the room. They didn't want anyone hearing the hum of the ventilation fans or the generators, because that acoustic data could give away the exact depth and the specific machinery of the bunker. Talk about paranoid, but incredibly smart.
Okay, here we go. Section 5, executing the final strike. Let's break down the minute-by-minute execution of February 28th, 2026.
For all the fancy AI and predictive modeling, you can't just drop bombs based on a guess. You need absolute, real-time certainty. And that massive intelligence breakthrough finally came on February 27th. Human agents right there on the ground confirmed that Khamenei and 40 top officials were suddenly changing their schedule. They weren't meeting at night like usual. And the kicker? They weren't meeting in the deep subterranean bunker. They were moving the meeting up to the surface level of the Pasteur Street compound. That single piece of intel was exactly what was needed to give the final green light.
So, the morning of the attack kicks off with this incredibly surgical dismantling of Iran's air defenses. At exactly 7:50 a.m., as joint F-35 and F-15 fighters zoom in, mobile towers all around the compound are jammed. Suddenly, the guards can't communicate. Next, Unit 8200 triggers a supply chain malware that had literally been sitting dormant for years inside Iran's Russian-made radar systems, completely wiping their screens blank. Meanwhile, U.S. Navy aircraft are just flooding the airspace with heavy electromagnetic jamming. And if that wasn't enough, thousands of pre-smuggled tiny sleeper drones hidden inside Iran beforehand wake up and swarm the paralyzed radar batteries from the ground, destroying them.
The air defenses were completely blind. And then, at exactly 9:40 a.m., those fighter jets released 30 hypersonic Blue Sparrow missiles. Now, these aren't your average missiles. They actually exit the atmosphere and then plunge straight down at a 90-degree angle at hypersonic speeds. All 30 missiles hit that exact pinpoint surface location where the meeting was taking place. The compound and everyone inside was instantly decimated.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the shocking aftermath. Let's look at the immediate, absolutely chaotic fallout that hit the Iranian command structure.
Just minutes after the strike, in this massive flex of absolute cyber dominance, Mossad and the CIA hacked into a super popular Iranian prayer app called Bade Saba. They sent a push notification directly to millions of everyday citizens. All it said was, "Help has arrived." And that was quickly followed by another notification explicitly demanding the immediate surrender of the Iranian military. It was just a stark, crazy illustration of exactly how deeply the nation's digital infrastructure had been compromised at the exact moment their entire leadership was wiped out.
But we're going to leave you with this incredibly provocative mystery from the source material. Dropping 30 missiles perfectly onto a surface target takes absolute inside knowledge. So who was the inside informant? Who actually convinced Khamenei to move his meeting out of that impenetrable bunker that specific morning? And get this, an Iranian Quds Force general, Ismail Khani, was supposedly at that meeting, but he miraculously survived. A guy who has supposedly dodged 9 previous assassination attempts. After the strike, he was actually arrested by Iranian intelligence, leaving us to really wonder just how deep the infiltration truly went. See you next time.